When your wife tells you she's going to her mother's for the weekend, but her mother calls asking if you've seen her daughter, that's when you start to realize you're living in a lie. That evening I sat in our Brooklyn apartment trying to understand how everything had rolled down to this moment. Eric. That's my name, and I work as a curator at the Museum of Natural History. My wife Megan taught English at a high school. We had been together for 9 years, raising our 8-year-old son Ethan. It all started with a strange call from my mother-in-law 3 weeks ago. She wanted to pass along a pie recipe to Megan that she had supposedly asked for. The problem was that Megan had told me she was having tea with her right now in Queens. I told my mother-in-law I would pass it along and immediately called my wife. She picked up and said she was delayed at work with paperwork. 2 different alibis in 5 minutes, that was the first red flag. The next day I asked my best friend Michael, who worked in security, to help me. I didn't want to believe the worst, but I had to find out the truth. Michael agreed to follow Megan after work. What he told me a week later shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. Megan was meeting a man named Walt at a bar in Midtown. Michael showed me photos. They were sitting too close, laughing. He was holding her hand. Walt turned out to be an expert in maritime shipping, tall, tanned, with the confidence that money and success provide. Michael found out they had been seeing each other for several months, since they met at the same bar where Megan went with colleagues after a teaching conference. But the worst was yet to come. I decided not to confront immediately, but to gather more evidence. One evening, while Megan was taking a shower, I took her phone. She thought I didn't know the password, but I had seen her enter our son's birth date. The correspondence with Walt was hidden in archived chats. Reading was painful. They were planning a vacation together, a Caribbean cruise. Walt promised her a new life, said he would divorce his wife for her. One message from Megan struck me the most. I love Eric, I really do. But with you I feel alive, Walt. He's buried in his museum exhibits and you see the real me. She loved us both? How is that even possible? I knew about the cruise. They were planning to leave in 2 weeks. Megan told me she was going to an educational seminar in Boston. I nodded and said it was a great opportunity for her career. But I had a different plan. Through my work at the museum, I had contacts in various fields, including journalists. One of them, James, had once done an investigation on fraud in cruise companies. I asked him for a favor, to get me a ticket on the same cruise. Not in a luxury cabin, of course, but in economy class, but that was enough. Departure day came quickly. Megan kissed me and Ethan goodbye, said she would miss us. I took my son to my parents in Long Island and drove to the port. My heart was pounding so hard it seemed everyone around could hear it. On the ship I stayed away from the upper decks for the first 2 days. I knew their schedule from the correspondence: breakfast at 8, pool until lunch, dinner at the restaurant. On the 3rd day I decided to act. I put on a cap and sunglasses and went up to the pool. They were there, Megan in a new swimsuit I had never seen, laughing at some joke from Walt. They looked like the perfect couple on their honeymoon. I took several photos and videos on my phone and returned to the cabin. But this was only the first part of the plan. I knew Walt was married. I had found his profile on social media. His wife, Sarah, owned a gallery in Soho. I sent her an anonymous message with several photos and her husband's cabin number. The next morning there was a scandal on the ship. Sarah flew to the Bahamas and boarded during the port stop. The scene by the pool was epic. Sarah was screaming at Walt. Megan was trying to explain it was a misunderstanding. Security separated them to different sides. Passengers were filming everything on their phones. But I wasn't done yet. While everyone was busy with the drama, I approached Megan, who was crying on a bench near the lifeboats. She looked up and turned white as chalk. Eric? What are you doing here? Did they cancel the seminar in Boston? I asked calmly. She started babbling something about a mistake, a misunderstanding, that this wasn't what I thought. I just took out my phone and showed her screenshots of her correspondence with Walt. You love us both, right? I wonder what Ethan will say when he finds out his mom lied to him for months. Don't you dare drag our son into this, she exclaimed. Me? I'm dragging him in? You went off to have fun with your lover, leaving him at home. You chose Walt over your family. Walt appeared a few minutes later, his face red from the quarrel with his wife. Seeing me, he stopped. You're her husband? Was for 7 years. Now it's your turn, buddy. Just keep in mind, Sarah has already filed for divorce and is going to take half of your business. She just texted me. Walt stared at Megan. You said you were getting divorced. I was going to. She began. Going to? I lost everything because of you. My wife, business, reputation. Their quarrel was music to my ears. It turned out Walt really was planning to divorce, but Megan was just playing both sides, not daring to make a choice. Now the choice was made for her. They spent the rest of the cruise separately. Walt locked himself in his cabin. Megan tried calling me, but I blocked her number. Upon returning to New York, I had already filed divorce papers. My parents and her parents were on my side. My mother-in-law was shocked by her daughter's actions. The divorce went relatively quickly. Property was divided in half, but I got custody of Ethan. Megan didn't fight, understanding that the cruise story would destroy her teacher's reputation. The school already knew about the scandal. Someone posted the video from the ship on YouTube. Walt dumped her immediately after returning. His divorce from Sarah cost him millions, and he blamed Megan for everything. She was left alone, without a husband, without a lover, with limited rights to see her son. 6 months later I received a letter from her. She wrote that she understood her mistake, that she loved me for real, just got confused in her own feelings. Walt was an escape from routine for her, an adventure she lacked. But losing everything, she understood what she had. I didn't respond. Ethan sometimes asks about his mom, and I let them see each other twice a month. He's still too young to know the truth, but someday I'll tell him that trust is the most valuable thing in a relationship. Megan now lives in a small apartment in Queens, teaches private lessons. Walt moved to California trying to restore his business. Sarah opened a new gallery and, rumor has it, is dating a famous artist. And me? I learned to trust people again. I started dating a colleague from the museum, Emma. She knows my story and says the past doesn't define the future. Ethan adores her, she teaches him to draw dinosaurs. But let me tell you more about what happened in those crucial moments, because the story doesn't end there. The confrontation on the cruise ship was just the beginning of a series of events that would change all our lives forever. When I returned from the cruise, I had a long conversation with my lawyer, Patricia Chin. She was a tough woman in her 50s who had handled dozens of divorce cases. "You have everything you need," she said, looking through the evidence I had gathered. "The photographs, the text messages, witness statements from your friend Michael. This is an open and shut case." But it wasn't just about winning the divorce. I wanted to make sure Ethan understood, when he was old enough, that what his mother did wasn't normal behavior. I wanted him to grow up knowing that actions have consequences, that trust is earned and can be broken. The weeks following my return were intense. Megan moved out of our apartment and went to stay with a friend. She kept trying to reach me through mutual friends, through her parents, even through Ethan's school. But I remained firm. I told everyone the same thing. If she wants to communicate, it goes through my lawyer. Michael became my rock during this period. He would come over in the evenings, help me with Ethan, make sure I was eating properly. "You're doing the right thing," he kept telling me. She made her choices, now she has to live with them. One evening, about 3 weeks after the cruise incident, Michael and I were sitting on my apartment balcony, looking out over Brooklyn. Ethan was asleep inside. "You know what the worst part is?" I said. "I keep replaying our entire relationship in my head, trying to figure out when things went wrong. When did I stop being enough for her?" Michael shook his head. "Don't do that to yourself, Eric. This isn't about you not being enough. This is about her making selfish choices. Some people, they get comfortable and then they get bored. They start looking for excitement elsewhere instead of working on what they have." He was right, but it didn't make the pain any less. I had invested 9 years of my life into building a future with Megan. We had a son together. We had dreams, plans, a whole life mapped out. And she threw it all away for what? For excitement? For feeling alive? The divorce proceedings moved quickly. Megan's lawyer tried to negotiate for more custody rights, but Patricia was merciless. She presented all the evidence of Megan's infidelity, her lies, her deception. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Morrison, looked at Megan with visible disappointment. "Mrs. Parker," she said, "you not only betrayed your husband's trust, but you also lied repeatedly to your son. That shows a pattern of behavior that concerns this court." In the end, I got primary custody, with Megan having visitation rights 2 weekends a month. The house and most of our savings were divided equally, but I got to keep the apartment since it was better for Ethan's stability. But here's where things got interesting. About 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I received a call from Sarah, Walt's ex-wife. "Mr. Parker? This is Sarah Williams. I hope you don't mind me calling." I was surprised but curious. "Not at all. How can I help you?" "I wanted to thank you," she said, "for what you did on that cruise ship. You could have just confronted them privately, gotten your divorce quietly. But by doing what you did, you saved me years of being lied to. Walt had been having affairs for a while, I suspected. But I never had proof until you gave it to me. We talked for over an hour. Sarah was an interesting woman, Educated, successful, and unlike what I expected, she wasn't bitter. "I'm actually grateful," she told me. "The gallery is doing better than ever. I've thrown myself into my work and I'm happier than I've been in years. Sometimes it takes a crisis to show us what we're really capable of." Her words stayed with me. I started thinking about my own life, about what I wanted for my future. The museum had always been my passion, but I realized I had been playing it safe, not taking risks in my career. I started proposing new exhibitions, reaching out to other institutions for collaborative projects. One of these projects brought Emma into my life. She was an art restorer working on a special exhibition about Renaissance paintings. We met at a planning meeting, and I was immediately struck by her intelligence and passion for her work. She had red hair that she kept in a practical bun, green eyes that lit up when she talked about art restoration techniques, and a laugh that was infectious. Our first real conversation happened over coffee after a long meeting about the exhibition. "So," she said, stirring her cappuccino, "I've heard some things about you around the museum. About your divorce." I tensed up. "What have you heard?" "That your wife cheated, that there was some dramatic confrontation on a cruise ship, that you handled it all with remarkable dignity." She looked at me directly. "I admire that. My ex-husband cheated too. I caught him in our bed with his secretary. Very cliché." We laughed, and it felt good to laugh about something that had caused so much pain. From that day on, Emma and I became friends. It took another 3 months before I worked up the courage to ask her on a proper date. Meanwhile, Megan's life was falling apart in ways I hadn't anticipated. The video from the cruise ship had gone viral in certain circles. Someone had recognized her and posted about it on local parent forums. Parents at her school started complaining, saying they didn't want someone with loose morals teaching their children. The school, a private institution that prided itself on its reputation, let her go at the end of the semester. She tried to find another teaching position, but the video kept following her. Every time she got close to a job offer, someone would find the video and send it to the school administrators. She ended up taking private tutoring gigs, making a fraction of what she used to earn. Walt's situation wasn't much better. His divorce from Sarah had been expensive as predicted. But more than that, his business reputation took a hit. In the maritime shipping world, personal integrity matters. Clients started wondering, if he couldn't be trusted to honor his marriage vows, could he be trusted with their multi-million-dollar contracts? His business didn't fail entirely, but it shrank considerably. I knew all this not because I was keeping tabs on them, I had moved on, but because people kept telling me. The museum world is small and news travels fast. Sarah would occasionally update me when we met for coffee, which we did every few months. We had become friends, bonded by our shared experience of betrayal. Before I continue, please pause the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new interesting stories. Thank you. One Saturday afternoon, about 8 months after the divorce, Megan came to pick up Ethan for her weekend visitation. Emma was at my apartment helping Ethan with a school project about dinosaurs. When the doorbell rang, I opened it to find Megan looking tired and drawn. Her eyes immediately went to Emma, who was sitting on the floor with Ethan, both of them laughing at something on the laptop. "She's here?" Megan's voice was tight. "Emma's name is Emma," I said calmly. "And yes, she's here. She's part of my life now, which means she's part of Ethan's life." "It's barely been 8 months, Eric. How can you have moved on so fast?" I looked at her steadily. "How can you ask me that? You were sleeping with Walt for months while we were still married. You planned a romantic vacation with him. You told him you loved him. Don't talk to me about moving on too fast." Ethan came running to the door. "Mom?" He hugged her, and I saw Megan's face soften. Whatever else she was, she did love our son. After they left, Emma came and stood beside me. "That was hard," she said quietly. "It gets easier every time," I replied. And it was true. Each interaction with Megan hurt a little less. The wound was healing slowly but surely. Ethan adapted better than I expected. Children are resilient like that. He loved his time with his mom, but he was also comfortable with Emma in his life. She never tried to replace Megan, which I appreciated. She was just herself, kind, patient, good with kids. The museum exhibition that Emma and I worked on together was a huge success. It attracted record visitors and received praise from critics. The director called me into his office one day and offered me a promotion, head curator of the entire modern art section. It was the career breakthrough I had been working toward for years. That night, I took Emma out to celebrate. We went to a small Italian restaurant in the village, one of those places with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles. Over tiramisu and espresso, I told her about the promotion. "I'm so proud of you," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "You deserve this, Eric. You've worked so hard and you've been through so much." "I couldn't have done it without you," I said. And I meant it. Emma had been my support system, my sounding board, my friend, and then my partner. She had helped me believe in myself again after Megan's betrayal had shattered my confidence. A year after the divorce, I received another letter from Megan. This one was different from the first. She wasn't asking for forgiveness or trying to explain herself. Instead, she was accepting responsibility. "Eric," she wrote, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness and I'm not asking for it. I just want you to know that I understand now what I threw away. I had everything, a good man, a beautiful son, a stable life. And I destroyed it because I was selfish and foolish. I thought excitement and passion were the same as love. I was wrong. What we had was real and I didn't appreciate it until it was gone. I don't expect a response to this letter. I just needed you to know that I take full responsibility for what happened. You didn't deserve what I did to you. I hope you found happiness with Emma. Ethan talks about her sometimes and I can tell she's good to him. That's all I can ask for at this point. Take care of yourself, Eric. And thank you for being a good father to our son. Megan." I read the letter several times. There was no manipulation in it, no hidden agenda. It was just honest acknowledgement of her mistakes. I showed it to Emma that evening. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. "There's nothing to do. She's right about everything in this letter. But that doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase the pain or rebuild the trust. It's too late for us and I think she finally understands that." Emma nodded. "Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, and I realized I meant it. "I'm actually okay. Better than okay. I'm happy, Emma. For the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely happy." And I was. My career was thriving, I had primary custody of my son, and I had found someone who truly valued and respected me. The betrayal that had once seemed like the end of my world had actually been the beginning of something better. Ethan was doing well too. He was excelling in school, made lots of friends, and was generally a happy kid. He never asked why his mom and I weren't together anymore. At 8, then 9 years old, he accepted the situation without needing detailed explanations. That would come later, when he was older and could understand the complexity of adult relationships. The revenge I had taken on that cruise ship, revealing Megan and Walt's affair in such a public way, had seemed extreme to some people. Michael understood and so did Sarah. But some of our mutual friends had criticized me for it. "You could have handled it more privately," one of them said. But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. Megan and Walt had been living in deception, lying to their spouses, planning their future while destroying ours. They had made their choices in secret, thinking they could control the narrative, thinking they could have their cake and eat it too. I had simply brought their choices into the light. The consequences they faced, the public humiliation, the financial losses, the damaged reputations, those weren't my doing. Those were the natural results of their actions. I just accelerated the process. Would they have eventually gotten caught anyway? Probably. But it might have taken years, and in the meantime, Sarah and I would have continued being lied to, continued investing in relationships that were already dead. 2 years after the divorce, Emma and I moved in together. Ethan was excited about it. Emma's apartment was bigger than mine, with an extra room that became Ethan's art studio. Emma, true to her nature, had been teaching him not just to draw dinosaurs but to understand art in a deeper way. "Art is about seeing the world differently," she told him one evening as they worked on a painting together. "It's about expressing what you feel inside." I watched them from the doorway, feeling grateful. This was what a healthy relationship looked like. Communication, respect, shared values, genuine care for each other. Everything my marriage to Megan had lacked, at least in the end. Megan continued her visitation schedule. Over time, our interactions became cordial if not friendly. We could discuss Ethan's schooling, his health, his activities without tension. She never brought up Walt and I never asked. I heard through the grapevine that she had briefly tried dating someone else, but it hadn't worked out. Walt, I knew even less about. Sarah told me he had moved to California and was trying to rebuild his shipping business out there. "Good riddance," she said. He was always more concerned with his image than with actual substance. California's a good place for people like that. Sarah herself had thrived. Her gallery had expanded, she had published a book about modern art curation, and yes, she was dating someone, a sculptor whose work she had featured in an exhibition. "He's nothing like Walt," she told me over one of our coffee meetings. "He's genuine, kind, present. It's refreshing." 3 years after the cruise incident, the Museum of Natural History held a gala fundraiser. As head curator, I was expected to attend and schmooze with donors. Emma came with me wearing a stunning emerald dress that matched her eyes. We mingled, made small talk, thanked donors for their generosity. At one point in the evening, I found myself standing in front of a painting that had been loaned to us for the event. It depicted a ship on stormy seas, waves crashing against its hull, but the ship itself remaining steady and strong. "Reminds you of anything?" Emma asked, coming to stand beside me. "Yeah," I said, putting my arm around her. "It reminds me that even when life throws storms at you, you can weather them. You can come out stronger on the other side." "Very philosophical, Mr. Head Curator," she teased. I laughed. "I have my moments." Looking back on everything that had happened, I realized that betrayal, as painful as it was, had been a catalyst for change. It had forced me to confront uncomfortable truths, to make hard decisions, to rebuild my life from the ground up. And in doing so, I had discovered strengths I didn't know I had. Would I have chosen to go through it? No. Was it worth it in the end? That's a harder question to answer. The pain was real, the damage to my trust was real, and the impact on Ethan was real even if he didn't fully understand it yet. But the growth that came from it, the new life I built, the relationship with Emma, those were real too. Megan had said in her letter that she thought excitement and passion were the same as love. She was wrong. Love is about commitment, about choosing someone every day even when it's not exciting. It's about building a life together, weathering storms together, growing together. Passion fades, excitement diminishes, but love, real love, endures. I had learned that lesson the hard way, but I had learned it. And I was determined to apply it to my relationship with Emma, to my parenting of Ethan, to every aspect of my life going forward. As for the revenge itself, that dramatic confrontation on the cruise ship, people asked me sometimes if I regretted being so public about it. The answer was always no. Megan and Walt had played games with people's lives, with people's emotions. They had lied and deceived and manipulated. They deserved to face the consequences of their actions, and those consequences needed to be proportional to the harm they had caused. Some might say I was vindictive, that I should have been the bigger person, that I should have handled it quietly. But I disagreed. Being the bigger person doesn't mean being a doormat. It doesn't mean letting people walk all over you without consequences. Sometimes the biggest thing you can do is stand up for yourself, demand respect, and show others that actions have consequences. The story of my revenge had spread beyond just my immediate circle. The YouTube video from the cruise ship had been viewed millions of times. I never confirmed or denied that I was the person involved, but people in my professional circle knew. And interestingly, it didn't hurt my career. If anything, it helped. People respected that I hadn't just rolled over and accepted the betrayal. They respected that I had taken action. 4 years after the divorce, Ethan was 12 years old. He was starting to ask more questions about why his parents weren't together. One evening, after Emma had gone home and Ethan and I were having our usual father-son talk before bed, he brought it up. "Dad, why did you and Mom get divorced?" I had been preparing for this conversation for years. I sat down on the edge of his bed and thought carefully about how to answer. "Your mom and I loved each other very much when we got married," I began. "And we made you, which was the best thing either of us ever did. But sometimes people change. They want different things. They make choices that hurt the people around them." "Did Mom hurt you?" Ethan asked directly. "Yes," I said honestly. "She did. She made some choices that broke my trust in her. And without trust, a marriage can't work." "What kind of choices?" "That's something we can talk about more when you're older," I said. "But the important thing is that your mom loves you very much and so do I. What happened between us doesn't change that. It's not your fault and both of us will always be here for you." Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I like Emma. Is she going to be my stepmom?" I smiled. Emma and I had talked about getting engaged, but we hadn't made any definite plans yet. "Would you be okay with that?" "Yeah," Ethan said. "She's nice. And she makes you happy. You smile more when she's around." Out of the mouths of babes. My 12-year-old son had noticed what I sometimes forgot to acknowledge, that Emma had brought joy back into my life. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.